such an important speech and message, and we are so proud of your leadership. Thank you so much to Pedro and to Young Voices and all that you do. Thank you, Pedro Moya. We think you are an amazing leader, and you have just charged up 600 people to do more. It is now my pleasure to do what we do to adult keynote speakers every year, which they don't exactly welcome, is to have to follow our youth speaker. So Mark Schreiber, I apologize in advance. No, actually, I really don't. Before I introduce Mark Schreiber, I just want to say how pleased we are to have so many elected officials with us. We're pleased to have a Lieutenant Governor, Dan McKee, Nellie Gorbea, our Secretary of State, and Treasurer Seth Magaziner. Thank you so much for being with us. Basically, we're thrilled that almost every elected official is here, so I will intermittently introduce you so as to keep on rolling with the program, but we appreciate all of your attendance today. I am really, really thrilled that Mark Schreiber agreed to be our keynote speaker for this very, very special 25th anniversary celebration. I told Mark that as a child advocacy organization, to have recently met someone who is a nationwide and worldwide child advocate through the amazing leadership role that he plays at Save the Children, that it would be a tremendously opportune fit if he would be willing to join us. Let me tell you a little bit about Mark. He is Senior Vice President of U.S. Programs and Advocacy at Save the Children and CEO of Save the Children Action Network. Mark joined Save the Children in 2003 and developed the agency's domestic early childhood and school-age education programs, which today reach children in more than 100 underserved rural communities. He also created the Save the Children Domestic Emergencies Program to ensure the safety and well-being of children before, during, and after disaster strikes. An advocate for children throughout his entire career, in 2013, Schreiber created Save the Children's political advocacy arm, Save the Children Action Network. SCAN seeks to build bipartisan solutions and generate voter support for policies that ensure that every child has the opportunity to succeed. And many of these programs, as you well know, have tremendous voter support behind them, and I'm sure that we'll hear more about that from Mark. With a grassroots network of more than 280,000 supporters across all 50 states, SCAN is working to ensure that every child in the U.S. has access to high-quality early childhood education and to end preventable maternal and child deaths worldwide. Mark, the legislators, there are many of you here, will be pleased to know that Mark was a member of the Maryland House of Delegates from 1994 to 2002. He was the first chair of the Joint Committee on Children, Youth, and Families and was appointed chair of the Children and Youth Subcommittee of Maryland's House Ways and Means Committee. That's a great place to be when you're a child advocate. He was repeatedly recognized as Outstanding Legislator of the Year by prominent advocacy and civic organizations. In 1988, he founded the Innovative Choice Program, which serves delinquent and at-risk youth in Baltimore City through intensive community-based counseling. He subsequently created the Choice Jobs Program to get jobs for those young people. The outreach and tracking part of the Choice Program was the model for our very own Tides Family Services outreach and tracking here in Rhode Island. Mark received his BA from the College of the Holy Cross and a Master's in Public Administration from Harvard. His latest book, Pilgrimage, My Search for the Real Pope Francis, was published in November 2016, and his best-selling memoir, A Good Man, Rediscovering My Father, Sergeant Schreiber, was published in 2012. Mark lives with his wife Jean and their 3 children in Maryland. I am so delighted that you're here in Rhode Island, Mark. Thank you for your leadership for children and families in the U.S. and across the world.
nice. We were pumped up. Is that what it was? So thank you, Elizabeth, for those very kind words. Actually made me sound pretty good, so thank you very much on a dreary Monday. And Pedro, you were excellent. Wasn't he great? I had the chance of meeting him earlier this morning. He was going to Bentley to study international business. The fact that his brother went to Brandeis, I mean, your parents did something right. So congratulations to them and to all the great work that Young Voices is doing. Really amazing. And Elizabeth, I'm really honored to be with all of you this morning at the 25th anniversary. When you come from a big Irish Catholic family that's very competitive, when you get an honor like this, the first thing you do is you call up your family members to rub it in. So Elizabeth called me up and asked me to come here. The first thing I did was call my cousin Patrick Kennedy. I said, Patrick, you're not going to believe it. I've been asked by Elizabeth Burke-Bryant for the Rhode Island Kids Count 25th anniversary. And he goes, are you kidding me? Elizabeth asked me to give that talk. I said, he goes, I have 4 kids, you have 3. I was in Congress, you were in the state legislature. I'm hanging up on Patrick. I called my sister Maria. I said, Maria, you're not going to believe it. You know, I went to school in New England. I've been asked down by Elizabeth Burke-Bryant. She's the best child advocate in all of Rhode Island. And she goes, Elizabeth called me and asked me. What are you talking about? She goes, I've written 5 bestsellers, you've written 2. I'm on NBC, you're at Save the Children. Mommy loved me more than you. I hung up on her. So I don't know, Elizabeth, so I'm kind of getting discouraged. So I called my brother Timmy, who runs Special Olympics. I told him, I said, you know, Elizabeth asked me, and I called Patrick, I called Maria. I said, do you think they're lying to me? Timmy goes, I don't know, but I got a message here to call Elizabeth Burke. I don't know if I was number 4 or number 5, but I'm happy to be here. I really am happy to be in Rhode Island. I saw my friend Linda Rossi. Elizabeth talked about the Choice program. Linda Rossi gave me the first grant for starting that program up in the late 1980s. We got married in Newport, Rhode Island, almost 27 years ago. The first person I hired at the Choice program was from Rhode Island. As Elizabeth mentioned, the Choice Outreach and Tracking Program was replicated by Tides Family Service. Brother Michael, I met many years ago. Beth Bixby, I believe, is here. Now they're running that organization. It's so great. I went to Holy Cross. I heard about Barrington. I heard about Providence. I heard about Ernie D. and Marvin Barnes. So I feel like Rhode Island is really in my blood. I'll tell you one quick story. I was down a couple years ago. I got asked to speak on this book on my pop by the Bush family. And Mrs. Bush, Barbara Bush, had started a family finance operation, a nonprofit. She has this big tribute to reading. She invites readers down to Houston to speak about their books. So I'm invited down with John Meach, and he's written like 5 bestsellers, #1. A guy named Brad Thor, who has written a bunch of books, bestsellers, #1. And then there's me. We get invited out to lunch with the Bush family, President Bush, the other President Bush, Governor Bush. There are a lot of Bushes. And we have lunch there with the president, and very nice. And then I go back to the hotel, and I'm getting onto the elevator, and this guy walks into the elevator with, he's got a big cowboy hat on, cowboy boots, and he looks at me and he goes, damn, I didn't ever tell you you look like Kennedy. And I said, yeah, sometimes. And he goes, that must make you so mad. So I'm happy to be here in Rhode Island. Did you hear anything I just said? Did you start at the beginning?
No, just a little.
Elizabeth said definitely don't start at the beginning. It's a little off. I really do thank you, Elizabeth, and everyone for inviting me here. I'd like to think I was chosen to say a few words because of the work I did at the Choice Program on Juvenile Justice Reform in Maryland, or maybe in the legislature at the Joint Committee for Children, Youth, and Families, trying to invest in high-quality early childhood education. or our work at Save the Children, where we do home visiting programs, run Head Start programs, run after-school programs, or maybe even Save the Children Action Network, where I get to go around the country and talk about the importance of high-quality early childhood education, about how 90% of the brain growth of kids happens in the first 5 years of life, but as a country we don't invest in many cases until they enter kindergarten, and why that's such a huge lost opportunity. About Professor James Heckman, the Nobel Prize-winning economist, and his studies that show that if we invest early, it's a 13% per year return on investment when we invest in serving kids that are 3 and 4 years old. But I think the real reason I was asked to say a few words was that this book I wrote on my dad and the lessons I learned from him. My story on my pop focused not on all the great work that he did, his worldly achievements in creating the Peace Corps for President Johnson, or the War on Poverty for the Peace Corps under President Kennedy, War on Poverty under President Johnson, creating programs like Head Start, or legal services for the poor, Job Corps, VISTA, foster grandparents, community action programs, or the federally qualified health centers, or the work he did with my mother spreading Special Olympics all around the world. But what I really learned were the attributes that defined his life. And I was touched not by those worldly achievements in the newspaper and television after he died, but by the words of folks like Gene Wilson, who served him breakfast every day at the hot shops in Washington, D.C., who waited in line when he died at the funeral, at the wake, and said, "Your father was a good man." Turned around and walked out of the church. Or Edwin DeBus, who works at American Airlines, who I saw this morning, or last night actually, and said that, "You know, your father was such a good man, even when he had Alzheimer's, I'd take him through security, he was always so polite and kind." Calvin Dove, the guy who picks up trash in our neighborhood, parked his trash truck a couple days after my pop died. Got out of it, and I was playing a little bit in the front yard, and he walked over. It was about 10 feet away, wiped his hands, shook my hand, and said, "Your father was a good man." He turned around, got back in his truck, and drove out of the neighborhood. And I wanted to figure out what that meant, goodness versus greatness, because there are so many great people, or people that think they're great or are perceived as great, that aren't good when the lights are off, when they're not on stage speaking. They treat the people that are cleaning up our breakfast the same as they would the governor or the senators or our president or whoever. So I went back and read some of the notes that my father wrote me every day. He would write every day when we were in high school and college. I slip them under the door when we were at home, or mail them, and distilled down the 3 principles of his life. And they are his faith in God, and it was a faith that demanded acts of hope and acts of love. You see that faith in being raised in a very devout Catholic family. My father, just to contextualize it for 1 minute, was born in 1950, and his godfather, his grandfather, took Jeb Stuart to the Battle of Gettysburg as a 17-year-old kid. And that guy, Thomas Herbert Shriver, went into priesthood and dropped out twice because of health problems. Became great friends with a guy named Gibbons, who would go on to be the second cardinal in America, and had a close relationship with my dad in his early life. And you see that faith in the letters he wrote when he survived the Battle of Guadalcanal and Santa Cruz during World War II, when my father prayed that he would live. And you see that faith in action when he went to Chicago after the war and worked with Martin Luther King to integrate Catholic hospitals and Catholic schools. I'll tell you one quick story. Martin Luther King, my pop, had a good relationship. My father was in charge of Senator Kennedy's Civil Rights Division in the 1960 campaign. And a couple of weeks before the election, Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested, and many people thought he might be killed. And the idea came up to Senator Kennedy to call Coretta Scott King and express his concern about Martin Luther King. And the Kennedy campaign had been told in 1960 that if Jack Kennedy said anything positive about Khrushchev, Castro, or King, the South would throw their support to Richard Nixon. So he proposed the idea was shot down, and a couple of days later he was in a hotel room with my uncle, and the room emptied out, and he said, "Hey Jack, would you call Coretta Scott King?" Senator Kennedy said, "Sure, but I don't have her number." They pull the number, Dad pulls the number out, they call Coretta Scott King, and the phone call's made. 30 seconds later, it's over. And Kenny O'Donnell, who's from Mount Boston, comes out of the bathroom where he was, says what's going on, finds it out, all hell breaks loose. Civil rights unit is closed because they thought the campaign was going to be over. A couple days later, Daddy King comes out in support of Senator Kennedy. He had already endorsed Richard Nixon. If you look at the voting patterns in that election, and a number of other ministers came out, Ralph David Abernathy, others, the African-American vote bumped up to such a degree that many people think that that's what got Senator Kennedy elected president. And you could say it was a great political move by a guy who was raised and segregated in Maryland, whose grandpa had taken Jeb Stuart to the Battle of Gettysburg, whose family had fought on both sides of the Civil War. But I think it was an act of hope. I think it was an effort to try to heal some of the political wounds and divisiveness in this country in 1960 by getting a guy who might get elected president to reach out to the most prominent African-American leader. And you see these acts of hope throughout his life: the creation of Head Start, creation of Special Olympics, the effort, as he said, to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, to shelter the homeless, which you hear in the Gospel of Matthew. What Jews call tikkun olam, to repair the world, what Muslims call Islah, to repair the world as well. So you're probably sitting here wondering what these stories of faith and hope and love have to do with us here today. I think my pop would have loved the energy in this room. The 600 plus leaders all across Rhode Island, business leaders, political leaders, nonprofit leaders, youth leaders, all committed to reducing child poverty and closing the achievement and opportunity gaps. It's really amazing. I think you would have been fired up by Pedro's words and the fact that he is a leader on so many different fronts here in Rhode Island. I think you would have been so proud of Rhode Island's pre-K program and the fact that it's rated #1 in quality, and so excited that the governor, who I just saw walk in, and others are pushing to make pre-K universal. You would have been so proud that Governor Raimondo is committed to a strong birth to 5 system here in Rhode Island, and you would have loved the rich diversity and culture seen in this state. And again, what do these stories of faith, hope, and love have to do with us all here this morning? I think as corny as it sounds, I think the work that Rhode Island Kids Count does every day, in partnership with so many of you, day in and day out, I think these are all acts of hope and love. The establishment of universal full-day kindergarten, the dramatic reduction in childhood-led poisoning, high-quality children's health insurance coverage. These are all acts of hope, all acts of love. Reforming the juvenile justice system, helping to develop after-school programs. Again, these are acts of hope, acts of love that make Rhode Island a more just, more caring community, especially for our youngest citizens. So I really am thrilled to be with you all this morning to celebrate the good work of Rhode Island Kids Count and the very, very good work that it does every day, so many of you in partnership. I'm honored and to be surrounded by such goodness, by people who remind me of my mom and dad, people who try every day to heal the world, people who know how tough the going can be, who have the will to keep pushing ahead for kids, people who persevere, people who have faith in the power of hope and love. What an honor, what a blessing it is to be with you all this morning. Thanks so much for having me.